yesterday, and that is one JJ Spawn, who up there at Oakmont Country Club in and around the Pittsburgh area. He won the 125th edition of the U.S. Open yesterday, so I'm sure a bunch of you were tuned in, and maybe some of you who were busy earlier in the afternoon were kind of delighted when you got home later and you said, man, why is golf still on? I can still watch it, because you had a pretty extended rain delay there yesterday. The conditions were really, really rough, especially afterwards. You could just see the amount of water that was on the course that these guys were dealing with, and some of them, the Sam Burns and Adam Scotts of the world, certainly had a day to forget yesterday. But JJ Spawn, what started off as a terrible day for him, he bogeyed 5 of his first 6 holes. Looked like he wasn't going to be really much of a factor going into the stretch there of the final round, and he somehow just kind of got his game back together, stayed consistent after those first 6 holes just to stay in the mix there, and then ultimately has a great shot on 17 to give himself an eagle opportunity when he's tied at the lead with 1 over par. He manages to birdie that hole to get to even, give himself the lead, and then he finishes off on the 18th hole. He needed to 2-putt to win, but instead he hits a 64-yard putt, the longest putt that anybody made at Oakmont the entire weekend, to seal the deal there. So he gets his first major win. He finishes 1 under par. He was the only golfer to finish under par for the entire tournament. So we had talked about last week about how this was going to be one of, if not the hardest golf courses we'd ever seen on the PGA Tour. And I gave you the numbers that on average, right around 3 players per year, every year when the U.S. Open's played at Oakmont, finish under par. So you knew it was going to be a tough course out there this weekend. But JJ Spawn, seemingly coming out of nowhere. I think there's a lot of people, I'll be honest, didn't know who JJ Spawn was coming into Thursday.
Same.
But now there's a lot of people out there that will never forget who JJ Spawn is. So yeah, he had an awesome Father's Day. It was cool getting to see him and his family celebrating the win there at Oakmont yesterday. But yeah, big win. And it was an awesome finish yesterday, because I mean, you had with about 4 or 5 holes left, you had 4 guys that were all tied for the lead at one point, and then people just started kind of dropping like flies there in the final few holes. Sam Burns was in the lead yesterday going into Sunday. He shot 8 over for the day. Adam Scott shot 9 over. So those were 2 guys that were in the thick of it until the very end, and then just absolutely collapsed. So it was brutal for some guys out there, but JJ Spawn managed to hang on. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and again, somebody that's not, a super golfer or elite at golf, to see professionals have some of the worst performances
makes you feel better.
It really does. It's kind of humbling. It's like, okay, well, I might not be able to compete at the Masters, and but maybe the U.S. Open, if everybody's going to be 60 shots over par, I'll be right there in line with everybody else.
Yeah, if you were watching towards the end and you got to watch Tyrrell Hatton and kind of how he finished up with a couple of his shots, that was making me feel a lot better, because he was getting angry. He was taking it out on the course. He was beating his club on the ground. Because yeah, there were a couple times where it's like, oh man, you hit the ball 3 feet. Okay, well that makes me feel a lot better, because that's what I would have done in that situation too. But yeah, again, JJ Spawn's the winner. He's taking home $4.3 million in winnings yesterday. Robert McIntyre, he finished in second at 1 over with $2.3 million in winnings. Victor Hovland, he finishes in third place there. You have John Rahm and Scotty Scheffler. They both tied for 7th with Sam Burns at 4 over. So a nice kind of finish there for Scotty Scheffler. He managed to just kind of stay firm around 4 over for most of the weekend. Brooks Koepka, he fell to +6. So he finished tied for 12th there. Adam Scott, who I mentioned earlier, he finishes tied for 12th as well. And then you have Rory there at 19th, finishing 7 over for the weekend. So congratulations to JJ Spawn, your 125th U.S. Open champion. Well, we also have the College World Series. That's still going on, but that got underway over the weekend. So we did have some action on Friday, going all the way back quickly. You had Oregon State knocking off Louisville in the opening round. Then you had Coastal Carolina knocking off Arizona as well on Friday. So they both advanced to the winner's side of the bracket. Then on Saturday, you had UCLA taking down Murray State 6-4, and LSU putting it on Arkansas a little bit, 4-1 there on Saturday. So LSU right now remains the SEC's best shot, as it would appear, at hoisting the trophy. But then yesterday, you did have Louisville taking on Arizona in an elimination game. So Arizona gets eliminated. They're the first team out there in Omaha as Louisville gets the win 8-3. Then you had Coastal Carolina last night, 6-2 winner over Oregon State. So Coastal, they have now won 25 games in a row, and they are one win away from making it to the finals of the College World Series. So they are just on an absolute tear. They remain undefeated, and they send Oregon State to the losers bracket. So today you have 2 games coming up. You have a big one for Arkansas. Big game. 1 o'clock. They're taking on Murray State. Whoever wins, you advance. Whoever loses, you're going home. So elimination game for the Hogs today at 1 o'clock. You can check that out. And then tonight in the winners bracket, you get LSU as they're going to take on UCLA there on that side of the bracket. So both SEC teams in play today. Arkansas needs to win to survive. LSU looking to stay undefeated there in Omaha. So that's what's going on at the College World Series in Omaha. I did see as well, I don't know if you saw this, Damian, apparently things got a little too rowdy at the Jello Shop bar over the weekend, and they had to actually close down on, I think it was Saturday night.
Yeah.
They had to close down early because of some fighting that they had going on from some patrons.
Yeah, and I saw the tweet that they had put out, and it's like, hey, we're here for a good time. We know everybody's here for the Jello shots and stuff, but one thing we cannot handle, and one thing we will not handle is fighting. That's kind of, they're defeating the purpose. It's like, we're here for a good time. We know how much money we're going to make this weekend, and next weekend. It's, let us keep the doors open to make everybody else happy. As long as you control yourselves, we will keep them flowing. But at some point, there has to be a silver lining, to say the least. And they nipped that in the bud rather quickly.
Yes, it does. It certainly does appear that was the case. But yeah, just I mean, I'll be honest. The fact that this, I guess, is the first year that it seems like that's happened, I was like, that's honestly pretty good that this is the first time this has like become a big deal. Because I mean, let's be honest. I think we can. Especially with some of those fan bases there, yeah, you could see where maybe something there would happen. But
and I love the fact that like people were blaming UCLA. They're like, these rowdy UCLA fans. Ever since they've gone to the Big Ten, they just let loose, and they need to get some sort of control up there, and they did.
Yeah, so quickly, if you want to know how the leaderboard looks now, because I love this. I know some people don't, but I love this every year at the World Series. I think it's hilarious. So no surprise, the leader right now is LSU. They have 13,552 Jello shots. In last place is also unsurprisingly UCLA with 929. But how about Murray State? Murray State's actually in second place with 6,420. So they made sure we may not be here very long, but we're going to have a damn good time while we are
Their
here.
presence will be felt one way or another.
Absolutely. So, shout out to Murray State there for trying to keep up. Granted, they're still less than halfway to LSU's mark, but they're just kind of a different beast. And then Arkansas, they're in third place with 5,500. So, glad to see everyone's having a good time up there at Rocco's and in Omaha. Well, it was a big weekend here for both Alabama and Auburn. A lot going on the recruiting ranks. We'll tell you who was in town for both Alabama and Auburn. What are some ways that these guys are trending? Because some big decisions coming up for a number of players that are on the radar for both Alabama and Auburn here over the next couple of weeks. That's next here on Morning Jox and Jox. 6:15 here on your Monday morning. Appreciate you tuning it in to Morning Jox here. Conrad and Damian with you until 7 o'clock. And it was a big weekend in both Tuscaloosa and Auburn in terms of recruiting. So we're going to give you the highlights from what were some big recruiting weekends in college football. As I said before the break, some big decisions coming up here in late June and early July. So some of these big names are going to make their decisions known very soon. And again, it doesn't mean anything because they don't sign on a dotted line for a handful of months anyways. But, it makes you feel good, right? It's nice when they verbally commit to your program. And as we have now heard from certain coaches in the SEC, it kind of just lets you know, oh, these are all the guys that we're paying, according to one coach, $20,000 a month to stay committed to us. So that's a whole nother thing. If you missed what Kirby Smart said a couple weeks ago, that is a little bit shocking there. But we'll start off with Alabama, what's going on there, because late last week, Alabama was trending towards, it looked at one point, maybe as many as 4 5-star guys that might be committing to Alabama. So a couple of them on campus this weekend, a couple of them actually visiting Auburn this weekend as well. So we'll get to that in a second. But first off, a little bit of housekeeping. You did have 5-star safety Jet Washington, so he's been a target for Alabama for a minute. Over the weekend, he actually was predicted to flip to Oregon, or I guess not flip because he hasn't officially committed yet, but he is now believed to be trending towards Oregon over Alabama, and part of that comes with Alabama and them being expected to land 5-star safety Jira Edwards now instead, so you're trading one safety for another there in Tuscaloosa. You did have 5-star athlete Brandon Arrington in Tuscaloosa again this weekend. He also plays cornerback. Some people have him rated as the number 1 cornerback in this class, if that's the side of the ball that he decides to stick to. But that was another big name that was down in Tuscaloosa this weekend that you can keep an eye on, along with the Jira Edwards, the Xavier Griffins of the world. You also had, and something that I don't think is going to come as a surprise to many people, because you had 7-on-7 camps going on at both Alabama and Auburn this weekend. But Alabama actually officially offered Thompson's quarterback Trent Seaborn. He is a 2027 recruit. He's a 4-star. Based on, I was looking last night, I believe he's the 16th overall quarterback recruit according to 247 in the 2027 class. So he's already been offered by Auburn. He got the official Alabama offer over the weekend. And then you also got another 4-star quarterback in the upcoming class 2026, Bryson Beaver, out of California, who picked up an offer from the Crimson Tide as well. So that's just kind of some of the highlights from the weekend for Alabama, as we still await some confirmation on some of those bigger names that we are expecting to commit to Alabama in the next couple of days. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. But for Auburn, you had a really big weekend. You had multiple 5-stars in town, including wide receiver Cedarian Morgan, running back Xavier Crowell, and safety Braylon Womack, who, according to some of the stuff I was reading over the weekend, apparently Braylon Womack really turned some heads for people, not just for how good he is, but I saw a lot of comments about just like what an outstanding kid this is. You're getting an absolute superstar human being in addition to a football talent. So they were all down there on the plains this weekend. It looks like right now, Ced Morgan, who's a 5-star wide receiver, he had been trending towards Alabama. Now after this visit, seems like maybe that's more of a 50-50 kind of thing there. So could be a big get there for Auburn. You also had Landon Duckworth, the 4-star quarterback in the 2026 class, who was on the plains this weekend as well. And we know that next month he's going to be picking between Auburn and South Carolina for his commitment. So that's some of the highlights from what was going on with a big recruiting weekend in college football. But now we have to get to something that I'll be completely honest was not 100% expecting to be talking about today. But as we've now gotten through the House settlement and all this fun stuff we've been trying to figure out with NIL and what the future of college athletics is going to look like, how about conference realignment resurfacing?
Again?
Yeah, that was something we thought we were kind of done with, right?
Oh, boy.
But apparently we are not. Now, granted, this is not looking like it's going to affect the SEC in any form or fashion right now. But it's just the fact that we are back to, all right, everything was fine for a year or two. Everyone was happy and cozy. And now, people are starting to, the unrest is real. So this all comes from the Pac-12. And this is a report that Pete Thamel came out with last night. So a lot of these rumblings have been going on. But it seems like we may have some actual movement here in the very near future. So this is what Pete Thamel is reporting at this very moment. So according to him, the Pac-12 is looking to add another program because that would get them to 8 teams, which would allow them to, technically be back in the power conference conversation alongside the SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, and the ACC. And right now, the heavy favorite to be that 8th member of the Pac-12 is none other than Texas State.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah,
that's McLaren school, right?
It is.
Hey,
That is
moving up in the world.
Alma mater. Yep. And TJ Finley, the home of TJ Finley,
is he
a couple
still there?
Years ago. No, he's not.
Okay,
he's not. But he was a couple years ago when he was actually good. That was the best.
Exactly.
That was the best we ever saw TJ Finley.
Should have stayed.
So maybe it's a magical place. But yeah, so they are the favorite to join the Pac-12. And the interesting part about this is that there is a lot of motivation, it seems, to get this done in the next 2 weeks. Because on July 1st, Texas State's buyout to jump and leave and go to the Pac-12 goes from $5 million to $10 million.
So double up.
Yeah. So I have to imagine that they would be highly motivated to get this done here before July 1st. So, and this would be to, I guess, effectively join the league in 2026. So this isn't happening this fall. This would be next year. But yeah, so it looks like they're going to try to get that deal done here in the next couple of weeks so that buyout stays as low as it possibly can. And so that then obviously sets off some dominoes. So now Texas State is leaving the Sun Belt. Well, where would the Sun Belt go to replace Texas State? Well, Louisiana Tech, that is the current favorite. That is the belief.
Makes sense.
And it does. And a lot of that is, I'm sure you're thinking in your head right now, is because of their location. And they're close with ULM and Southern Miss. So it all just kind of makes sense to have all the schools down there together, right? And according to the same report, it also says that Louisiana Tech has a strong tradition in baseball and softball, which is heavily valued in the Sun Belt Conference as well. If La Tech was not the team to go, Western Kentucky would be another team in contention there to make the jump to the Sun Belt from Conference USA. So now, what happens if Louisiana Tech leaves Conference USA for the Sun Belt? Well, then they would go and replace Louisiana Tech with Tarleton State, is the belief.
Okay.
That's just what the...
Okay. Move on up.
That's what the people who know more than I do are telling me.
Okay.
So, yeah, you would have Tarleton State there, and they would jump in. So that's just, again, it's... this isn't crazy. It's not Notre Dame joining a conference or anything like that, which I guess we've all probably given up hope on that ever happening. Because that just doesn't seem like it's going to be a thing, unfortunately. But yeah, very interesting that Pac-12 trying to get back into the swing of things here, Damian. And I think, look, are we going to take them seriously in terms of, viewing them on the same tier as even the ACC and the Big 12? No, but I mean, I guess it's nice to have them back.
They're trying.
Yeah, they're trying.
But a lot of this could have been avoided years ago. I mean, I don't even with all those teams coming, going to the Pac-12, I still don't look at them as a quote unquote power conference. I think that left when the Oregons, the UCLAs, USCs of the world, they, jump ship. I don't know. I mean, I appreciate the Pac-12 for at least trying to get outside of just 2 teams in your conference. But realistically, you're kind of looked at as a mid-major now. And I mean, you can look at leadership, you can look at, everything that went involved as far as, financially speaking to say, but I mean, at least I will give them an A for effort. I really do appreciate that they're at least trying to at least make themselves a conference again, or in the attempt to make themselves a conference again. And, congratulations. Now, are these teams necessarily going to move the needle? Maybe not. But if as much Pac-12 after dark as we can get, I'm perfectly fine with. If I do catch a Washington State and, Texas State game at almost midnight, so be it. Perfectly fine with it. But you are not a power. I don't know if this is going to be, hey, we've got our schools now. Let's get back into this thing. It's no, you're more of the group of 6 now.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be getting an automatic qualifier for the playoff or anything.
Maybe not.
Or anything close to that. It does. It's just different though, because again, from the name and what we all remember the Pac-12 of being, it will still carry some of that luster, but it just feels so completely different than, like Boise State joining the conference, for example. Okay, good for Boise State, right? You're now a power. I mean, we all recognize them as one of the best Group of 5 programs in football here over the last 20 years or so. But I look at something like, TCU going to the Big 12 or even UCF going to the Big 12, and that's like, oh, okay, I look at them as power conference teams now. Like, I'm not going to look at Boise State in the Pac-12 as a power conference team. They're still going to be in that, like you were saying, let me stack them up against UNLV and see, what we're looking at. That
right.
kind of thing. Like,
and again, Pac-12, this all could have been avoided, or maybe it couldn't have been avoided because the Big Ten would have been throwing even more money at your schools. But I think that, you getting into this power status, no matter who you bring in, unless it's like a Utah coming back or something, like you kind of just, you're up the creek without a paddle. And I mean, it's kind of just, this is where you are. This is the nature of college athletics. This is the nature of college football that, man, if these teams aren't bringing in a ton of revenue, a lot of eye candy, you're kind of just in no man's land. And like you said, I don't expect any Pac-12 schools to be out here saying, we need an automatic qualifier. They're going to pull up the resumes and say, well, maybe not, but we appreciate your conversation.
Yeah, so we'll see how all this plays out. Somebody chiming in here on the text line, 205-834-9450. That's how you can get on the courtesy GMC text line. And someone is asking, how could this trickle down to UAB? So the connection you would have with UAB, I guess, in all of this is there is still a strong belief that Memphis could be on the table for the Pac-12 as well. I saw part of the story that you had from Pete Thamel last night is that the Pac-12 has kicked the tires on bringing on Memphis as only a football member. So they're not going to be an official member of the Pac-12, but it would be like what you have with Notre Dame in basketball, right? They're an ACC school in basketball, but that's it. And so I mean, I guess that could affect UAB in the sense of, maybe then the American Conference feels the need to go out and add somebody else to replace Memphis in football. But I don't think in terms of, if you're looking at UAB, being a team that would be on the move in terms of conference realignment, I don't think you're going to see that anytime soon. But, I guess crazier things have happened. You never say never in today's day and age of college football, as we have learned. But no, I think UAB is safe. They just might not be playing Memphis in football. But it looks like in basketball, you certainly will be. So that is the latest on conference realignment, as well as what's going on the recruiting trail for both Alabama and Auburn. But we had a big moment on Friday. I was very proud of Damian. He came out here. He gave you his 10 teams that he's, going to consider rooting for this upcoming college football season. So I want to hear from Damian. What was the reaction like from your video? You went out, you put a great video out on Friday as well. And so have you maybe narrowed it down even further than 10, or just who's maybe the leader in the clubhouse right now based on the feedback that you've gotten? So we'll get that next. Damian's feedback on who he'll root for in 2025 here on Morning Jox. 6:34. Welcome back in. Morning Jocks here. Appreciate you joining us. Conrad and Damian here with you until 7 o'clock when we'll hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning. Sure, they'll have plenty of thoughts on conference realignment coming to college football once again and the domino effect that may have if you are just now joining us and you missed it. We talked about it at last segment, but it looks like the Pac-12 is going to add Texas State as their 8th member, which would put them back in the mix for being a part of the Power 5 conferences, like we have known them for a long time. And as a result of that, you might have La Tech then making the jump to replace Texas State, and then that could lead to Tarleton State then replacing La Tech in Conference USA. So a big kind of domino effect here of what could happen with conference realignment, but that's the latest that you need to know. And now on Friday, if you missed the show, Damian made a big announcement. So over the offseason, he's been trying to figure out who he's going to root for because he's sick and tired of being disappointed by Josh Heupel in Tennessee. He can't take it anymore. And so he's going to change his fandom. Potentially, I guess Tennessee's still in the mix, that you could stay a Tennessee fan. So on Friday, Damian, you gave us 10 teams. You then went and put out a very nicely done video kind of elaborating a little bit more on that. So if you can, remind our listeners who's in contention, and then I'm just kind of curious, what kind of response have you gotten to that over the weekend? Because I saw quite a bit.
Yeah, the top 10 teams that I could potentially be rooting for this fall go as follows: Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, line, Tennessee, Oklahoma, LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas, and Auburn. Yeah, it was very wide range. There were a couple South Carolina fans that were a little bit upset. They were saying, "Hey, we have so much potential going into 2025. Why wouldn't you want to hop on us while we're getting hot?" And I told them I couldn't find a. I'll just leave. I can't say it. But I told them that
mascot joke.
Yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I couldn't find one. Couldn't find one big enough for me. But I'll just kind of left that one as it is. I had a couple of Mississippi State fans that reached out to me and said, "Hey, we understand, but to say they're not in your top 10 is kind of upsetting." And I told them exactly. And they were one of the people that reached out. They were like, "We gave you a cowbell, my brother." I was like, "Well, when I look at this team going into 2025, it's hard to feel confident that they're going to have success." So a lot of it does kind of go towards
you don't want to root for a bad team.
True, but I said that, and they were like, "Well, you're a Tennessee Titans fan." I was like, "No
need." That is a good point.
No need to get personal. No need to get personal. But there were some teams that are in the top 10 that they were happy. Mm-hmm. A couple Florida fans reached out and they told me that hey, we'd love to get you to a game down in the swamp. And I was like, well, that can change everything, my brother. If you've got tickets for me, say no more. Now that's a lot of NIL packages that didn't include tickets to a game potentially. But most of the feedback I got was pretty positive. Of course, some Alabama fans, they were not so open arms about it, but then there were others that were like, "Yeah, come on, man, why not join the success train?" I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And again, I when I went down, the reasons why I made these, my top 10, I saw, and it goes back to Florida. I saw a lot of when I saw Ricky Pearsall at receiver, mm-hmm. I saw a lot of myself, and I was like, well, that's an offense I would love to kind of get behind. And they were, hyping up DJ Lagway. It's a lot of pieces that they're returning on the defensive side, offensive side, and I was like, okay, it makes sense. The one surprise I got, Tennessee fans are a little uneasy. The few Tennessee fans that I've talked to,
uneasy about losing your fandom,
on both sides of it, because once I started to explain that, hey, I'm always a Heupel disciple, that's my guy. They were like, well, that means you've already made your decision. I said, no, I've separated religion and fandom. But they were cautiously optimistic, and they were also cautiously pessimistic as well. They were saying, well, why do you want to hop off of the train now? And I was like, well, I have to pick one team, and you're still in the running. But they were like, so where are we? Are we top 5? I said, you're top 10. And they were like, but you also have Georgia in there. I was like, they are also in my top 10. So everybody's more worried about the level of where they are in the top 10
Mhm.
instead of just appreciating where they are in
That
the top 10.
that they're a part of it to begin with.
Right.
So for you, does Oklahoma get bonus points because that's where Josh Heupel's going to coach next year, and so you can just kind of go ahead and
No, we're not.
it make you look
We are
smart?
not projecting that far into the
Oh,
future.
okay.
Um,
I just didn't know if
no, Oklahoma is in the top 10 because of you, believe it or not,
Mhm.
because you have John Mateer winning the Heisman, and you also have them going to the college football playoff. So I was they were
Right.
kind of on the 11-10 line,
Uh-huh.
and you kind of pushed them up. And I was like, well, if Connor, and you've already seen them, you saw them when they were bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In
And they-
person.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and they still beat Alabama.
Mhm.
But then they,
That's right.
going into 2025, what they've done in the portal, I'm leaning towards Oklahoma having a pretty successful season, so that's why they were in my top 10. A lot of people had a question about Arkansas though, and I told them I just love Sam Pittman. Like my
And Taylor Green. Big
true,
fan.
yeah, big. He's a dark horse.
Mhm.
He's the darkest of darkest horses. But I think if it clicks, he can roll with it. But a lot of people question my Arkansas fandom. And our buddy Eric G, he reached out to me. He's like, you'll have so much fun being a Razorbacks fan. He's like, the expectations are just be pretty good. I was like, well, okay. He's
Fair.
like, the losses don't hurt as bad. It's just it depends on how you lose. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. I said, you know who you sound like? You sound like an Auburn fan. They're like, no, their losses hurt. And I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of Auburn fans have reached out. They're telling me just to come back home and get back to your roots.
Mhm.
And it's not that easy. It's just not that easy. Because
You've been hurt.
I have,
Mhm.
and that's the emotional effect that goes with it. Now, do I think they're going to have a good 2025? I do. I really do. But a lot of it is I err to the side of caution because I have been hurt. I have been hurt.
Understandable.
But
Yeah.
overall, my top 10 it's set. I think I'll give myself about a month. I think I'll go to I'll go to the end of SEC Media Days before I narrow it down to 5. I think
Okay.
5 is the next ideal number. And again, as much contact as I had with these fan bases and some of the coaches and general managers that I've talked to, I think the recruiting process is only going to ramp up from here till SEC Media Days. So thank you, Conrad.
Oh, well, you know what? We're all so excited for you, and this is a big decision in your life, and we're just happy to be along for the journey with you. So you can tell us, 205-834-9450, where do you want Damian to root for? Do you want him to root for your team? Do you want him to root against your team in 2025? We'll get some of your reaction on the other side, as well as the Atlanta Braves breaking a franchise record over the weekend. We'll tell you what it was here on Jox. 646 here on Morning Jox. Appreciate you tuning in. Conrad and Damian here with you. Gonna hear from you in just a moment at 205-834-9450. You can call or text in, get your thoughts on who you want Damian to root for this upcoming year. You can give your thoughts on a big recruiting weekend. We told you about Alabama and Auburn, some of the big names they had on campus this weekend, as well as conference realignment and Texas State potentially heading to the Pac-12 and the ripple effects that could come from that. But quickly want to tell you about the Atlanta Braves over the weekend. So a good weekend, I guess, all things considered, with a frustrating end, maybe would be the best way to describe it. So you absolutely dismantled the Rockies in the first game of the set on Friday, started off things on the right foot there. Then on Saturday, the Braves set a franchise record as they combined for 19 strikeouts as a team in Saturday's performance, which is the most ever in a single 9-inning game for Atlanta Braves pitchers. So they were absolutely masterful there. Spencer Strider had 13 strikeouts there on the bump, so finally starting to look like the Spencer Strider that we all know and love before his injury. So the Braves took the series in the first two games. So yesterday you were looking for the sweep, and unfortunately for the Atlanta Braves, Grant Holmes was great. The bullpen was not great. Grant Holmes, so yesterday, Grant Holmes has 15 strikeouts for the Atlanta Braves. 15 strikeouts. And you lose 10-1.
Ouch.
10-1. So Grant Holmes, he goes 6 1/3 yesterday, gives up 3 runs, 2 of them earned, strikes out 15 batters. And then you have Elly De Los Santos comes in, doesn't get an out, but manages to give up 4 earned runs. And then you have Ruiz, who follows him up. You get an inning out of him, but he gives up 3 runs, walks a couple of guys. So, yeah, I mean, again,
it's not about how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah. So, again, now maybe you can see where it's, okay, it's a good weekend, right? You won the series, you get 2 out of 3, but then you have that kind of a performance on Sunday, and you're just scratching your head like, man, what else can we ask for? I mean, you've got a guy out there pitching his butt off, 15 strikeouts, and you lose by 9 runs? Like, good Lord, man. Give that guy some run support. So, yeah, a little bit of a rough way for that series to end for the Braves. But they're now off today. They'll get back in action tomorrow against the Mets. So they got a big series coming up against the Mets. Then you got the Marlins. Then you got the Mets again. And then you got the Phillies. So, big opportunity. Just saying, if you wanted a time to go on a winning streak, it would be right now, Atlanta Braves fans. And then quickly, 2 big pieces of Major League Baseball news that you may have missed. Yesterday, the Red Sox trade Rafael Devers to the San Francisco Giants for pennies on the dollar. Because if you haven't been following it, he's been a little bit of a pain in the rear for them because he was not happy that they signed Alex Bregman to play third base. He's a third baseman, so he was upset about that, and they wanted him to try a different position or just DH, and he was not happy about that. So they trade him to San Francisco, and so that makes me happy because he's been the single hardest player for the Yankees to get out for the last, his entire career. So glad to see him gone, but he now goes to the National League West. And speaking of the National League West, tonight, the night that we've all been waiting for, right? Major League Baseball fans everywhere, Shohei Ohtani will be on the pitcher's mound tonight.
Hey, let's go.
First time since August of 2023. So seriously, almost 2 years since he's pitched. But he will be the starting pitcher for the Dodgers tonight against the Padres. So that'll certainly be cool to see. But if you're watching anything else sports related, just imagine they're going to be cutting in and you're.
Watch him go out here and have like a no-hitter or something.
I hope he gets shelled.
Also, another nugget of information: there are 29 teams in the MLB that have been swept this season. There's only one that's still remaining.
Is it the Reds?
It is indeed. And we're 36 and 35.
I was about to say, and you're in third place in your division.
Let's go. Right. We're trending up, man.
Yeah,
we're catching heat.
Yes.
It's the LA De La Cruz effect.
Yeah, whatever makes you feel better, buddy. But yeah, the Atlanta Braves right now, they are 13 games back in the National League East as it stands right now. And as far as the wild card goes, you are 8 games back of a wild card spot there. So chugging along here for the Braves season. All right, now we will go to you and your thoughts on the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450, where someone chimes in. They're saying, Damian, you need to cheer for Auburn this year. WDE.
They're in my top 10.
Okay. Let's see. Gavin chimes in. He says, you should pull for the best coach in the game, Damian. Go Dogs.
Hey. Shout out to Kirby.
Shout out to Kirby. Let's see. Hastings chimes in. He says, I'm hoping Alabama can at least make the top 3 for Damian. His fandom and loyalty are all we need to get us to the top this year. Don't go Auburn because then you have to deal with Don. Hastings, do not put Alabama's success this year on Damian.
But I like the recruiting pitch, though. It's all on my shoulders. I like that pressure. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd be asking Hastings for a little payout then if I was going to be in Alabama. It means that much. Let's see. Steven says, sounds like all these teams' fans are putting a lot of pressure on you, Damian. LSU Tiger fans don't seem to be putting a lot of pressure on you, so come join us. Have the time of your life. You already go shirtless at the Stallions game, so you're pretty much a Tigers fan.
I meet the requirements for the base level of being an LSU fan.
But now Steven's laying it on. He's putting the pressure on you now.
No, it's just all love.
Okay.
It's all love. Appreciate that.
Damian, is your first NIL deal going to be from Blue Chew?
I don't know, man.
Maybe. Let's see. Bobby, he chimes in. He's another LSU fan. He goes, Damian needs to pick LSU because not only are they going to be national champions at the end of this season, but he gets to enjoy the band playing neck, and he also gets to enjoy Conrad and the rest of the Alabama fans fume over Matt Moscona posting about Alabama burning.
Ooh.
And we're carrying the torch for the conference in baseball, too.
Hey.
Just a little nugget there if you want to.
Yeah.
That helps you out. Alan chimes in. He says, nobody likes the school that has Da Bear, Da Goat, and now Da Boar. Come on, Damian. Say, roll tide.
Roll tide?
Roll tide. And then Drake chimes in. He says, Gator boys, stay hot. Damian, come on.
Okay.
If you want to go down to the swamp with Drake and be a Florida Gators fan. All right, quickly, before we get out of here, let's go to the phone lines. I'm sure Don wants to make his pitch for Auburn and why Damian should root for them. So how we doing, Don?
I'm doing great, guys. First of all, I hope you guys had a great weekend and happy Father's Day to your dads. Damian, that was a beautiful picture of you and your dad on Facebook, by the way, brother.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. But yeah, Conrad, yeah, you know who I wrote for, but I'm not gonna put any pressure. I will respect his decision, but we're coming to a dead period, like you said, Damian. This is actually the last week of recruiting for about a month, so you got plenty of time, brother.
That's for players. My fandom is open 24/7.
That a boy, and everything. But like I told you, I got some Auburn shirts to give you, so I'm gonna make my try to get you, but I will respect your decision, whoever you choose.
It's very nice of you, Don.
That's all I ask.
So, Don, what you excited about the recruiting weekend that Auburn had this weekend? You had a bunch of 5-stars down there.
If I could give you a little nugget, now FSU Dave ain't gonna like this, but I don't know if you read where the receiver Devin Carter locked in his commitment over the weekend, and a little nugget on the Womack kid. Conrad and Damian, I don't know if y'all know this, but his sister goes to Auburn, and we think we're going to get him.
Yeah, I heard a lot of good things about Braylon Womack over the weekend, so that'd be a good get.
Wasn't that a good article that they had about what he said and everything? That was sounds like a really good kid.
I was about to say, yeah, he seems like an outstanding young man. So yeah, appreciate you calling in, Don. We'll hopefully we'll see you tomorrow at Social Taco.
Yes, sir, buddy. You will.
All righty, thank you, Don. Appreciate all of you chiming in this morning on the phone line as well as the text line. Greg chimes in. He says, once the Alabama offense gets rolling, Damian will be on board with Alabama.
You know me, big offensive guy.
RTR, baby.
Let's go.
See. All right, that does it for us. We're back tomorrow at 6 a.m. McElroy and Kublik in the morning.